team is allotted Yes, so each speaker or team is allotted 10 minutes for their presentation. To keep us on schedule, I kindly request you to stay within this time limit of 10 minutes. And in the interest of flow, we will not have questions after individual papers. Instead, a consolidated question and answer session will be held once all 8 presentations are concluded. So I'd like to call out if all our presenters are here, all 8 presenters, if you can just give a thumbs up. Is the first presenter here Dr. Umair Mohammed Syed?
Yes, good morning. I'm here.
Okay, okay. Um, all right then. So our first presenter is Dr. Umair Mohammed Syed, Assistant Professor at Azim Premji University, Bhopal, and he will be speaking on Beyond the Written Word, Oral Traditions, Vernacular Knowledge, and Multilingual Education in India. So Dr. Syed, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and very good morning to all of you. Unfortunately, due to some technical glitch, I would not be able to put on my PPT. However, I'll be able to take you through my presentation. As rightly pointed out, the title for my research paper is Beyond the Written Word: Oral Traditions, Vernacular Knowledge, and Multilingual Education in India. I hope I am audible.
Yes, sir, you are.
Yeah. Okay. So I would quickly take you through this research paper, which essentially focuses on the importance of oral traditions and the rich history that it has in the Indian knowledge tradition. So, in multilingual India, language education is founded on a diverse set of vernaculars, dialects, and folk expressive forms. A vast majority of Indians therefore gain exposure to multiple such vernaculars and dialects early on in their life. This is quite in contrast with the Americans and the Australians. This rich Indian linguistic tapestry facilitates diverse cultural foregrounding, a culture that predates the written word. This working paper today examines the pedagogical significance of oral traditions, folk tales, songs, proverbs, riddles, epics, and performative narratives in shaping multilingual education, particularly within vernacular contexts. Drawing on folklore studies and classroom ethnography, the study argues that oral traditions from Indian knowledge systems are not merely cultural artifacts, but dynamic repositories of linguistic competence and cognitive frameworks. India represents one of the most linguistically complex societies in human history, with over 19,500 reported mother tongues and hundreds of actively spoken languages. Linguistic plurality is not an exception, but the norm. Multilingualism in India is deeply embedded in its everyday social fabric, cultural practices, and collective memory. Unlike societies where language learning is primarily mediated through formal education, Indian linguistic competence emerges through immersion in vernacular environments largely structured by oral traditions. From early childhood, individuals encounter language not merely as a system of grammar and syntax, but as a lived and performed experience. Grandparents, parents narrate folk tales, mothers sing lullabies, community elders recite epics, and ritual specialists perform mythological narratives. These oral forms constitute a vernacular pedagogical system that predates formal schooling and operates independently of textual literacy. They transmit linguistic knowledge and alongside cultural values, ethical frameworks, and social norms. For instance, oral traditions are reinforced all over the country through the stories from Panchtantra, which date back to 3rd century BC, Hitopdesha, Tenali Rama, Akbar Birbal, and Vikram Betal folk stories. Further, there are folk tales from each of the specific Indian states which are intrinsic to that state's culture and traditions. They constitute foundational pedagogical resources in multilingual India. Rather than viewing oral traditions as relics of a pre literate past, we position them as dynamic and adaptive knowledge, systems that facilitate multilingual competence and cognitive development. Drawing from folklore theory, linguistic anthropology, and vernacular studies, this working paper examines how oral traditions shape language acquisition and proposes a folk centered pedagogical model for multilingual education. This brings to the first sub part of my paper, which is orality and knowledge transmission, a folklore perspective. So, folklore scholarship has long recognized oral traditions as sophisticated systems of knowledge transmission. Oral traditions encompass narratives, songs, proverbs, and performative expressions that circulate within communities through spoken performances rather than written documentation. These traditions are not static but evolve through performance, adaptation, and reinterpretation. Walter Ong's seminal work, Orality and Literacy, from 1982, emphasizes that oral cultures develop cognitive frameworks distinct from literate societies. Oral knowledge systems rely on repetition, rhythm, formulaic expressions, and mnemonic devices to preserve and transmit information. These features facilitate memory retention and comprehension, enabling learners to internalize linguistic structures without formal instruction. This can be comprehended through Ong's words, and I cite Walter Ong, in an oral culture to solve effectively the problem of retaining and retrieving carefully articulated thought. You have to do your thinking in mnemonic patterns. Ong highlights the role of rhythm, repetition, and formulaic storytelling in language learning. Similarly, Ruth Finnegan, an Irish linguist, argues in his book *The Oral and Beyond* that oral traditions must be understood as performative events rather than fixed texts. Meaning emerges through performances, interactions, and audience participation. This performative dimension makes oral traditions particularly effective pedagogical tools as learners engage actively with language rather than passively consuming information. Further, Belgian historian Jan Vansina's work, Tradition as Historical Evidence, underscores the reliability and complexity of oral knowledge systems. Vansina demonstrates that oral traditions preserve historical, linguistic, and cultural information across generations through structured narrative conventions. In India, for example, oral epics such as myriad versions of Ramayana and Mahabharata exemplify this continuity. From a folklore perspective, oral traditions function as vernacular epistemologies, ways of knowing rooted in collective experience. These epistemologies transmit linguistic competence alongside cultural meaning. Now, talking about the second subpart of this particular paper, which essentially highlights the vernacularity and linguistic pluralism. So, vernacularity refers to linguistic and cultural practices grounded in everyday social life rather than institutional authority. Vernacular languages are not merely informal variants of standardized languages, but fully developed linguistic systems shaped by historical and cultural processes. In this part, we analyze how the incorporation of oral traditions into language pedagogy enhances learner engagement, affirms vernacular identities, and bridges the gap between home languages and institutional education. It further critiques dominant monolingual and colonial epistemologies in language teaching, proposing a folk informed pedagogical model that recognizes oral knowledge systems as epistemically valid and pedagogically effective. In India, vernacularity is intrinsically linked to multilingualism. Individuals routinely navigate multiple linguistic registers depending on context. A child may speak a regional dialect at home, a standardized regional language in school, and another language in marketplaces or social interactions. Okay, so if I have to conclude, I will just quickly move to the last subpart um, of my research paper. So, an Indian, Verrier Elvin, an Indian ethnologist and tribal activist who is well known for his work with the Baigas and Gond tribes of Odisha and Madhya Pradesh, is of the view that storytelling plays a central role in socialization. Tribal myths and folk tales transmit linguistic knowledge alongside moral and cultural values. Oral traditions also preserve endangered languages. In communities where written scripts may not exist, oral transmission ensures linguistic continuity. Del Himes, an American folklorist concept of communicative competence, emphasizes that language learning involves understanding how language functions within social contexts. Oral traditions provide precisely such contexts. Through storytelling and performance, learners acquire pragmatic knowledge: when to speak, how to address others, and how to interpret meaning. Oral traditions frequently incorporate multiple languages or dialects. Folk songs, ritual chants, storytelling often involve code switching, exposing learners to diverse linguistic forms. Language acquisition is inseparable from cultural context. Oral traditions embed linguistic forms within the cultural narratives, enabling learners to understand not only how language works, but what it means in each context. For example, in rural India, oral traditions remain integral to everyday life. Grandparents narrate stories, women sing work songs, and community gatherings feature storytelling performances. These oral practices facilitate intergenerational language transmission. Children learn linguistic structures through participation in vernacular cultural practices. To conclude, in semi urban environments that are largely influenced by modernization today, oral traditions, like in rural India, persist within domestic and community spaces. Family storytelling, religious recitations, and folk performances continue to expose children to vernacular languages even today. These practices create linguistic continuity despite increasing exposure to standardized languages and formal education. However, colonial education system back in time privileged literacy and textual knowledge over oral traditions. British colonial education policies emphasized on English and standardized written languages. This marginalization or underplaying of oral traditions and folk tales by the British, Ngugi wa Thiong, a Kenyan author, argues in his notable work Decolonizing the Mind, this alienated learners from their linguistic and cultural environments. Indigenous oral knowledge systems that were long devalued are now gaining relevance thanks to Indian knowledge systems in the 21st century modern Bharat. That is it. Thank you from my side. That's about my research paper.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Syed. Now, as I have mentioned, if the audience have any questions, please note it down so we can put it up in the question and answer session. Now, I would like to invite Ms. Gargi Singh and Dr. Hemant Kumar Maurya from the Indian Institute of Teacher Education, Gandhinagar, Gujarat, to present their work on folk healing traditions as living knowledge systems within Indian knowledge frameworks. Good morning, everyone. Ms. Gargi Singh? Yes, ma'am. Am I audible? Yes, yes, you are. Just give me 1 minute. All right. My screen is visible for you? Yes, it is. Okay. Please try to stick in the limited time. Yeah. Yes, sure. So, good morning to all my fellow presenters. I am Gargi from Indian Institute of Teacher Education, and my topic is folk healing traditions as living knowledge systems within Indian knowledge framework. So, when we talk about the folk healing traditions, it is rooted in our lived experiences, oral traditions, and close relationship with nature. That is why it is said that its foundation lies in community based. Now, it is not fixed or static. It is dynamic in nature because it is actively accepted or adapted by the traditional herbalists
midwives, and the spiritual practitioners to meet new health challenges. So we can say that it is the integral part of IKS, and it complements formal Indian knowledge system like Ayurveda, yoga by preserving localized and everyday cultural practices. That's why there is a harmony between the body, nature, mind, and spirituality, whereas our modern medical system include laboratory and institutional certifications. So when we talk about the ontology, to here, health is an equilibrium between the body, mind, and the consciousness. It is always said that the equilibrium must be maintained between our body, that is sharir, mind, that is our manas, and our atma, that is consciousness. Then it laid as a valid knowledge of sources, which is validated through the pratyaksh, that is perception of symptoms, and anuman, influence of causes, and shabd, that is reliable testimony from elders, that is orally passed or we listen from our elders. Then in Sankhya philosophy, we also found it as that which interpret that there are three gunas, and when imbalances cause between these three gunas, that is sattva, rajas, and tamas, then it may leads or it leads in some kind of illness. So it can be restored, or healing process can be done by maintaining the balance in these three tattva, sattva, which places harmony. Now, need of the study when we talk about the folk living systems is overlooked because marginalized institutional researches which heavily favors clinical and scientific approaches. It declined rapidly due to modernization, urbanization, and the loss of oral transmission. So it is necessary and it is crucial for cultural responsiveness insights for contemporary discussions on sustainable health practices, which has holistic relevance. So my paper is purely conceptual design, so there is no empirical data in it. We will discuss the objectives. So my first objective is to conceptualize folk healing tradition as living knowledge system within Indian knowledge system. So knowledge is not limited to the written text. Our natural interactions and our daily routine, our day-to-day activities, we learn every day. So the knowledge is existed in our everyday routine. Methods that are constantly created, tested, or improved based on our interactions help us in the continuous refinement. Then illness is seen as in various aspects like emotional, social, and spiritual imbalance. And when they are addressed with a blend of herbal medicines, dietary changes, and community support, by this we can place holistic harmony and address all these problems and illness and restore them. For example, tulsi, which holds a significant and a sacred place and known as holy vessel. When boiled, we boiled it with ginger, black pepper, or honey to treat seasonal illness like fever and cough. So it is a living practice which is taught by our family tradition. It is not mentioned in any textbook but it can be adapted by the local persons and the ingredients that we prepare it. So the folk tradition are the living system that preserve the indigenous knowledge, emphasize natural harmony, and require inclusive academic recognition. Now, my second objective is to examine the epistemologies that generate and validate the folk medicinal and ritual practices. So it is created through the deep ecological relationships because we interact with each other, not with persons, but with our nature, observing seasonal changes and long-term ecosystem interaction that helps in practical generation. Then gaining this knowledge by repeated practical effectiveness and shared experiences, not just by formal certification. So the validation is come from the community. That is why it is also said that this foundation is community based. Then rituals are also validated it collectively to restore harmony in instances of social or environmental disturbance, which integrate the spirituality. So today in modern era, laboratory testing is done, but if we if we relate it with our indigenous system, so we talk about our lived experiences, observations, and community trust. Here I took an example of neem leaves, which is known for its antiseptic feature and healing property. So when it is crushed and we make a paste of it, then it is very effective for some kinds of skin infections, wounds, which is validated by collective observations of antiseptic properties. And its cultural meaning holds that ritual use hung at entrance to protect against diseases during like if you know that during when any person suffer from measles and all, then the people used to take neem leaves and prepare these leaves and leave it by the side of the patient, because it is said that it provides some kind of relief. So that's why at the entrance it also used to protect against the disease, illustrating intervened cultural system. So epistemologically, it is rooted in observation and community acceptance. So these knowledge systems reflect the deep environmental relationships. Now, the third objective is to analyze mechanisms of knowledge transmission and adaptive continuity within folk healing traditions. So folk healing traditions mainly pass down via storytelling, active demonstration, and participation within the family members or the family network, which is oral or experiential. Then apprenticeship also transfer the technical skills along with the ethical values and cultural responsibilities. Tradition survived by the actively incorporated new plants or combining remedies with modern knowledge to remain relevant. That is, it is adaptive in nature. Conclusion, that dice, which is traditional midwives, known as the dice, learned herbal remedies, massages, and postnatal diets through long-term practical assistance. So modern adaptation is that in today they also encourage the hospital deliveries along with their knowledge. So the transmission mechanism ensure cultural connection, adaptive continuity that allows these traditions to remain it as a dynamic living system rather than a static one. So the fourth objective is we talk about that during the British, when British come, so they introduced the institutionalized Western medicine, which somehow overlook our indigenous practices or suppress it, as it is believed that they are myths or unscientific. So post-independence reliance on pharmaceutical dominance continued to overshadow our community-based healings. For example, that herbal healers using turmeric and ashwagandha were ignored, although modern science also confirmed that they have medicinal values. So critically examining the historical power structures is essential to restore respect for epistemic plurality. So here I want to conclude my presentation that it is dynamic but not outdated or anemic, because folk traditions are highly relevant, sustainable practice utilizing local resources to maintain the holistic well-being, also maintaining the balance between the body, consciousness, and the mind, as well as between the all three thoughts. So there is urgent action that all which are transmitted orally, we need to preserve it in the form of documentation. Then bridging them with IKS will help these classical texts with the lived wisdom of local communities. And if we talk about the future, so true health relies on opening a dialogue between traditional knowledge and modern scientific approaches. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gargi Singh and Dr. Hemant Kumar Maurya. Now, next we have Ms. Rasni Bai and Mr. L.T. Om Prakash from Christ University, Bangalore. Do we have Ms. Rasni Bai?
Good morning. Yeah.
Good morning.
Give me a second. I'll share my presentation.
So Ms. Rasni Bai and Dr. Mr. L.T. Om Prakash will be presenting on Karinkali has a ritual, performance, embodiment, and community practice.
I hope my PPT is visible.
Yes, it is visible.
1 second. Yeah. Good morning, everyone. So the title of my paper is Karinkali as a ritual performance, embodiment, and community practice. So this is my working paper. To contextualize Karinkali, so this is actually a seasonal performance which happens during Purams and Velas during the Malayalam month of Magaram, Kumbam, and Meenam in different parts of Kerala. My presentation basically explores like Karinkali as a vernacular ritual practice when we can observe it as focusing for understanding the religious syncretism or communal harmony, what exactly the Karinkali practice brings into the community as a whole. And the primary aim of the study is to examine Karinkali as a living ritual tradition and to understand how how it unfolds within the community settings and how it actually creates a kind of community bonding, love, like sharing and inclusivity, which is very subtle, but we can observe a kind of a hidden secularistic tone when this performance is being taking place. So this ritual is basically conducted as a fulfillment of vows or blessing or protection which is offered by household. So the ritual basically begins with an n number of procedures, preparing a lot of preparations in order to offer the god basically the offering or the protection. I'm not talking about the procedures here. I'm just focusing on the religious syncretism or the idea of communal harmony, what actually this performance is placing. So the performer later will be embodied by the god, and the god will actually enact vows. Similar studies like Teyyam, Muttappan Teyyam, and when Dr. Karthika ma'am was talking about different types of Teyyam, this is also a kind of embodied performance similar to that. So when ma'am was talking, she was mentioning about like how the communal harmony is being maintained and how actually the people from all the sects and all the religious beliefs will take part in this ritual. This is one of the important aspect which I'm trying to talk about. So the aim of the study is basically look into Karinkali as a living vernacular ritual practice and understand the structure and sequence of this ritual performance, and exploring more about the community participation in ritual space, where actually people from the onlookers from the neighborhood will be also given a platform, and whoever actually come in order to take part in the ritual performance are being welcomed, and there is no differentiation or no hierarchy which we can observe during the performance, where all the subjects are being welcomed equally. So the heightened element of the religious syncretism with this ritual we can observe. So the methodology which I have actually adopted is basically a preliminary field observation of Karinkali ritual, which is practiced in different parts of Kerala. So the research primarily involved observing the ritual performance within its natural setting, and particularly in the household. And the overall study actually adopt a kind of qualitative approach. Basically, this particular research understands Karinkali as a vernacular ritual practice where focusing on the collective participation, how it actually involves people from different religious background, and how the religious syncretism works in order to strengthen the cultural beliefs and the community harmony. So the basic findings are like household members, relatives, and the local residents actively participates in the ritual. So participants interact with the embodied deity through offerings, vows, requests, and the ritual space is actually open to everyone. Like there is no like a discrimination or inequality which is being like evident when it comes to the community participation. The ritual actually is traditionally performed by a particular ritual community, but participation is not limited to one religious group. That we can see that like the blessings and the participation is actually welcomed from different sects and different like religious background. So this is a shared participation which actually highlights the way how the like vernacular ritual practices can be actually can bring together people across religious boundaries. So here we can actually see a kind of like harmony which is being indirectly created when such rituals takes place. There is a subtle way of like recreating harmony between the neighborhoods, between the relatives. So this will be the particular event which will reconnect with the long relatives, or this will be the particular month or the day where all other neighbors will come together and they will be having food, or like they will be participating in this ritual for the whole day in that neighborhood or that particular place where this like ritual will be performed. So Karinkali functions as a shared ritual space for people from different religious backgrounds. So participants attend the seeking healing and protection, the fulfillment of vows. So the ritual creates a space where vernacular religious practices transcend from religious boundaries. So to conclude, this Karinkali remains as a living vernacular ritual tradition. So the ritual combines performance, embodiment, and community participation. So participation from diverse ritual backgrounds highlights the shared ritual belief system. So vernacular ritual traditions continue to function as actually a very important tool of knowledge system where we can connect the communities across. So here actually what they preserve through the community participation is the like natural bonding as a community, as a particular locality, what they have. So here, this particular ritual performance is acting as an important tool where it connects the community across and also maintains the kind of harmony or a kind of syncretic belief system, like bounding the community together. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation, Ms. Rasni. Now I invite Sidin A research scholar from the University of Calicut, to present ideological conflicts in folklore cinema and analysis of the Kantara franchise.
Okay, ma'am.
Yes. Yes, you are audible.
Yes, yes. Good morning, all. My paper titled Ideological Conflicts in Folklore Cinema and Analysis of the Kandara franchise. This paper examines how folklore functions within cinema as a powerful ideological tool. My argument that folklore in films can perform two contradictory roles. On one hand, it can express subaltern resistance and cultural protest. On the other hand, it can be transformed into a vehicle for cultural nationalism and ideological consolidation. Using the Kandara film franchise as a case study, this paper analyzes how cinematic representations of folklore shift from articulating resistance to reinforcing dominant cultural narratives. Folklore has always been closely connected with ideology. Historically, folklore has been used to express the experiences and worldviews of ordinary people, particularly marginalized communities. During the 19th century, folklore studies emerged in Europe through the collection of folk songs and tales from oral communities. We know that the children's and household tales of Grimm brothers. At the same time, folklore also have an important component of romantic nationalism. All over the world, nations began to define themselves through traditions, myths, and folk culture. One of the most consequential example of cultural appropriation in modern history was the use of folklore by Hitler and the Nazis. The Nazis did not merely refer to folklore specifically. They worked by comprehensively integrating German mythology, folklore, and the academic subject Volkskunde. Volkskunde means the German term of folklore. They weaponized these cultural forms to construct a racialized national identity and legitimize genocidal developmentalism. But the Soviet Union took a different approach. They used folklore to propagate the ideology of communist rule. From the 1930s to early 1950s, the Soviet government encouraged the production of new songs based on old heroic tales, whereas the old tales had heroes with supernatural powers, and the new tales featured the workers and peasants of the Soviet Union. The dragons were replaced by dams and factories, and they portrayed Stalin as a great man in these songs. This transformation becomes especially significant when folklore enters modern mass media, but especially in cinema. The concept of ideology helps us understand how folklore can be used politically. The term ideology was first introduced by Antonio Destos de Tracy, who described it as the science of ideas. Later, Karl Marx gave the concept its political significance. According to Marx, the dominant ideas in any historical period are usually the ideas of the ruling class. These ideas shape how people understand society, often discussing relations of power and inequality. Later, Antonio Gramsci and Luis Althusser expanded this idea and explained how culture helps maintain ideological control. From this perspective, folklore is not just entertainment or tradition. It can reflect class conflict, social struggle, and cultural resistance. For example, in Kerala, the ritual performance Tayyam, we know that, can be interpreted as a symbolic challenge to caste hierarchy. During the ritual, the individuals, or the peasants, or the marginalized people temporarily embody divine authority, and upper caste audiences must bow before them. However, over the time, many such traditions have been absorbed into dominant cultural systems, weakening their original political meanings. In current society, folklore cinema has become one of the most influential platform for representing folklore. Scholars like Michael J. Cohen argues that cinema functions as the folklore-like medium. When oral traditions are transformed into visual narratives, they become part of contemporary ideological discourse. Similarly, the latest study, Sharon R. Sherman, suggests that cinemas not only documents folklore but also reshapes it. When folklore is adapted into films, it often becomes aligned with the interest of dominant cultural groups. In this way, cinema can reproduce and reinforce social hierarchies such as caste, religion, and power structures. There is some examples. I skip that. In India, folklore and mythology have been central to cinema since its earliest days. Many folklore were based on epics like Ramayana and Mahabharata. Over time, these narratives have been repeatedly reproduced in films, television, serials, and digital media. So we know that A.K. Ramanujan have shown that there are hundreds of different versions of Ramayana. There's a book of 300 Ramayanas of him, but each region has its own interpretation in that. Despite this diversity, mass media often presents a single standardized version, which contributes to the construction of a unified national religious identity. A major example is Raman Sagar's Ramayana television series in 1987. During its broadcast, television itself became an object of devotion. People performed rituals in front of the TV series. This phenomenon also intersected with the Ram Janmabhoomi political movement, showing how visual media can transform religious narratives into political mobilization. Coming on my topic, Kandara franchise. The 2022 Kandara is set to coastal Karnataka and depicts the Budakola ritual tradition. Budakola involves spirit worship where the performers embody local deities such as the Panjuruli and Guliga. These rituals express as a deep spiritual connection between communities and forest landscape. In this film, the story revolves around the conflict between the local tribal communities and a feudal landlord and the state forest department. The villagers view the forest as a sacred communal, while the landlord represents capitalist notion of a private property. Through this narrative, the film critiques capitalist and land ownership and highlights the indigenous ecological knowledge. In this sense, the film presents folklore as a language of protest. We can go into the ideological shift. In the prequel of the 2025 Kandara, the local folk cosmologies are increasingly linked to a broader pan-Indian Hindu civilization narrative. I'm going to in the Chapter 1, 2025 film reveals the problems with culturally categorizing indigenous identities, particularly through the portrayal of the fictional Kadapa tribe as enemies. While appearing a favor the forest dwellers of Kandara, the film presents the Kadapa tribe as a symbol of darkness and cruelty associated with witchcraft and illicit magical powers. The binary framing breaks down the subaltern unity that existed in the film and creates a moral hierarchy of superior and brutal among the indigenous people themselves. This film's dialogues reinforce the prejudice. For example, the reference to the blood of Bangra and the breast milk of Kadapa to justify the cruelty of Princess Kanagavati, who was raised and protected by the tribe. Such expressions not only demonize the indigenous practice of Kadapa tribe, but also denigrate the matriarchal cultural heritage. I am going to conclude my paper. To conclude, this paper demonstrates the paradoxical role of folklore in contemporary Indian cinema. Through the example of Kandara franchise, we can observe how folklore operates simultaneously as a language of resistance and a tool for cultural hegemony. This case highlights the broader tension between folklore as a living political practice and folklore as a symbolic cultural resource within nationalist discourse. Therefore, future research must critically examine whether cinematic adaptations of folklore preserve the political voices of marginalized communities or whether they ultimately absorb these traditions into dominant ideological frameworks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sidin. Now, I would like to invite Veduvolu Nienu from ICFAI University Nagaland to share the research on From Voice to memory oral performance in the Cuckoo Festival of Porba village, Nagaland.
Uh, Hello, good afternoon. Am I audible?
Good afternoon. Yes, you are.
Thank you, ma'am. Let me just take a few moments to share my screen.
All right.
Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is visible, but it's not on slideshow mode.
Oh, okay. Just
Yes, you can go
okay.
ahead. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, everyone. My paper is titled "From Voice to Memory: Oral Performance in the Cuckoo Festival of Porba Village, Nagaland." So Nagaland, with its 17 districts, is home to its corresponding tribes, which all celebrate a myriad of festivals. Most of these festivals are rooted primarily in the agricultural cycle and traditional belief systems, which are marked by rituals of Thanksgiving, warrior commemorations, or harvest celebrations that are predominantly male-centered. These festivals often highlight communal unity and the reaffirmation of social hierarchies, with men taking center stage in performances, decision making, and ritual roles. So, in this landscape of largely patriarchal ritual practice, the Cuckoo Festival, it stands out as a rare cultural expression that celebrates the girl child. It is a known fact that local festivals are vital sites for transmission and reconfiguration of cultural memory within indigenous communities. Where religious conversion, modernization, and state formation have transformed ritual systems, these festivals survive as selective performances of memory. The aim of my paper is to study the Cuckoo Festival as practiced and remembered in Porba village of Peg District, Nagaland. So this study addresses how vernacular knowledge persists despite the decline of the ritual systems following Christianization. So what is Cuckoo? So Cuckoo is also known as the festival for the girl child. This is a girls' festival which is observed annually only in a few villages in Nagaland, specifically amongst the Angami and the Chagisang tribes. So why it stands out is because of its focus on the female bonding, generosity, and remembrance. This festival, it shifts the spotlight towards the young girls and their social relationships. The word cuckoo in the local dialect of the Chagisang tribe refers to the sharing of food amongst the girls. So on this day, which is a one-day celebration, the young girls, they receive plates of food and gather in groups at selected houses to come and eat together, which strengthens their bonds and sense of togetherness. So how this Cuckoo festival originated, there is a story behind this, but I will not be going to that. So this festival, it presents an illuminating case of cultural persistence and transformation. So following the arrival of Christianity to the Nagas, the ritual elements associated with this pre-Christian cosmology have either diminished or been reinterpreted. So despite this, cuckoo, it survives not just as a relic, but as an articulated cultural form, continuing through oral narration, play, exchange of food, and gendered discipline. So cuckoo is a mirror of culture. Alan Dundas's assertion that folklore functions as a mirror of culture, it reinforces the importance of moving beyond mere documentation of the festival to uncover its symbolic and social functions within the Naga communities. Applying Dundas's framework to cuckoo shifts the analytical question. Rather than asking whether cuckoo remains authentic in its post-Christian form, we ask, what does its current form reveal about the community today? So the cuckoo mirrors the contemporary negotiations between indigenous identity and Christian modernity. Dundas also emphasized folklore's pedagogical function. It does not merely entertain, but it also socializes. So in this dimension, cuckoo emerges through regulated participation, food exchange, and elder instruction. Coming to Jan Asman's concept of cultural memory. In this situation, cuckoo occupies an intermediate space between communicative memory and cultural memory. So the transmission of cuckoo depends on living elders and oral narration. Yet it also functions symbolically as a marker of cultural identity. As ritual cosmology recedes, memory becomes more consciously curated, and the festival's survival is tied to its role as a mnemonic device for collective identity. The food exchange in cuckoo is important because it encodes reciprocal ethics. The dishes prepared and shared are not random. They signify participation and care. So during this festival, the girls learn through practice, cooperative labor, shared responsibility, as well as the ritual etiquette. So this pedagogical dimension aligns with Dundas' assertion that folklore teaches cultural norms implicitly, hereby enabling the festival to become a classroom without walls. With the coming of Christianity, it's altered the ritual systems across Nagaland. However, cuckoo survival demonstrates selective preservation. Elders often narrate cuckoo in cultural rather than religious terms, which itself is meaningful because it reflects community negotiating theological boundaries while retaining social cohesion. So cuckoo demonstrates that oral performance itself is an archive. There may be no written script, yet memory is stored in repeated utterance. So without performance, the memory would fade. Without memory, performance would lose legitimacy. The cycle sustains itself through communal participation. So in conclusion, in this contemporary Naga society where digital media and urban migration reshape identity, local festivals serve as stabilizing frameworks. Cuckoo offers intergenerational continuity. Its resilience lies not in rigid preservation, but in adaptive reinterpretation. So it reveals how folklore persists beyond ritual decline. It is a living performance of memory and not just a relic. Cuckoo exemplifies how vernacular knowledge survives through voice, which is enacted, framed, and remembered. So I would like to share a couple of pictures that was taken during my field work. This is in Porba village. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation, Ms. Ninu. Now, I would like to call upon the next presenter, who is Tabda Rasmi Baladbai.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are. So, yeah, Tabda Rasmi Bharatbhai and Dr. Dipti Khanna from IITE Gandhinagar. Their topic is Folk Tales as an Instrument of the Hidden Curriculum for Teaching Equality to Middle School Students.
Hello.
Yes, you're audible.
Just a second, ma'am. Okay. So, good afternoon, everyone. To present over here, my name is Rashmi Chowda, a research scholar from the Indian Institute of Teacher Education, Gandhinagar. So today I am presenting my paper on the folk tales
as an instrument of the hidden curriculum for teaching equality to the middle school students under the NP 2020. So first start with the education that's far beyond the prescribed syllabi, while the formal curriculum includes the structure, knowledge, and textbook and measurable outcome, while the school simultaneously transmit the another powerful form of learning, which is the hidden curriculum, in the hidden curriculum includes the implicit norms, values, and expectation that students absorb through the everyday classroom, through the interaction of the fellow mates or with the teachers. So especially talk about in the paper, especially I talk about the middle school years, which includes the age group of 11 to 14 years, particularly because learner begins developing the moral reasoning and social awareness in that age. Therefore, this stage provides an important opportunity for all the students to nurture the democratic value, such as the equality, fraternity, empathy, and respect towards others. So the core inquiry of the paper is how can traditional folk tales operate within the hidden curriculum to shape the students' understanding of equality in the context of NEP 2020. This question become very important in terms of the NEP. NEP 2020 also talk about the value education, and I guess that is why I specially focused on the with reference to the NEP 2020. So there are then I talk about the intersection of the theoretical education forces, in which I talk about the hidden curriculum, equity, and folk tales. The hidden curriculum includes the implicit norms, authority, and structure, and the expectation transmitted through the everyday school. Then the folk tales, the cultural tracks, narrative expression, and collective memories. This carry the deep ideological significance. And third one is the equity, a normative commitment to fairness, human dignity, and the capability of the individual to achieve the value, the way of being. So there are the four main pillars of the transformative pedagogy. And the first, which is the critical pedagogy, which encourages the learners to question the inequalities rather than the act as a passive learners or passive listeners. Second is the culture reproduction, which talk about the remind us that narrative may unintentionally reproduce the dominant hierarchy unless they are the critically examined. Third is the experiential education, which connect the learning with student live experiences and emotion. And fourth is a culture education, which ensure that which promotes the inclusive representation and respect for the diverse identity. These four together helps to create the transformative learning environment. Then I talk about the bridging the gap between the narrative to the pedagogy, in which I first I talk about the traditional view that traditional schooling often reproduce the social norms, which without the questioning them, rather than if I connect with this the stories which is used to critically think in the classroom can become the bridge between the narrative and pedagogy. Through the dialogic storytelling and the reflective discussion, narrative enables students to think out of the box, which give the arena to express themselves, their perspective, and the different viewpoints from the other perspective. And this process cultivate the ethical reasoning, ethical reasoning, empathy, and the understanding, which essential component for the democratic education. Then how the stories act as a moral imagination. So first, there are the main four component, which is a representation, identification, normalization, and interpretation. If I talk about the representation, which determine whose voice and identities are visible in narrative. Then the identification, which foster that when learner emotionally connect with the character, Then they are temporarily inhabited their perspective. Then the third is a normalization, where repeated narratives pattern shape the student's assumption and the social relation. And the fourth is the interpretation, which talk about the where learners move from the passive reception or a passive listening to the critical dialogue, and for the give the a space for the reflection. This process of the story become the powerful tool for the critical imagination and the critical thinking. Then the dual nature of the cultural narrative, in which I talk about the passive transformation to the critical reflection. When presented fix the moral lessons like a truth, uh, 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 in which story may reinforce the social hierarchies and the stereotype. On the other hand, about the critical reflection, the some stories can challenge the rigid assumption and encourage to deeper level of thinking. Then the productive tension within the NEP 2020. On the one side is the Indian knowledge system, which is ICAS, in which the indigenous narrative and emphasize on the cultural rootedness. On the other hand, the strong emphasis on the constitutional values like justice, liberty, equality, and this practice balance the culture tradition to the with the democratic ideals, ensure that the cultural narrative support the inclusive and ethical social understanding. Then these are the uh, 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 vision to inclusive education, under which I talk about the holistic development, multidisciplinary learning, inclusive of the marginalized group, and experiential value for the formation. And then whole process I map with the story, in which the narrative like for animal, deer, crow, mouse, and tortoise, in which when the deer is trapped in the hunter's net, the animal collaborate and combining their unique strength to rescue their friend. This story demonstrates that the collective cooperation and mutual trust on the other can overcome the differences in the size, ability, and status. Then, if demonstrating narrative, the deeper analysis of the narrative is important. Lesson about the equality reject the hierarchical superiority, or the character or no character is depicted as inherently dominant. It reflects the capability approach, where each character contribute according to their ability. Hidden lesson is about the traditional power and the cooperative solidarity. Um, Here the role of the educator is role of the educator is very important to deliver the such thing in the in the form of hidden curriculum, where every story is entertained that uh, tell that deeper ethical significance may remain unnoticed. However, the teacher encourages critical questioning and dialogue, in which students begins to reflect on why each character contribute to this matter. Uh, in the conclusion, the folk tales can serve as a powerful tool for promoting the equality-oriented thinking among the middle school students with reference to NEP 2020. That's
Thank
all
you,
from my side.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Chavda. Now, I would like to call upon Biswadev Raspansi from Midnapore City College. Yeah. And his presentation is titled Preservation and Politics of Restructuring Santali Folklores, a Study of Christian Missionaries Approach.
Okay, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. So this is the joint paper of Mr. Bishadev Rajvanshi and Dr. Urpita Raj. So to talk about my paper, it's all about the politics that exactly initiated by Christian missionaries like PO boarding, script search, and bombers in 19th and 20th century. So Christian missionary work among the Shantals of Odisha started in 1883. After a year in Midnapur of West Bengal. In Shantal Parganas, it started after the rebellion in the following year, 1862, the Church Missionary Society, 1867, the Indian Home Mission to the Shantal at Bangaria near Dumka. 1870, the United Free Church of Scotland in the southwestern part of the district, Bamdha, Pachamba, and Pakuria area. In 1884, American Methodist Episcopal Mission at Pakur and the Catholic Church at Hiranpur near Pakur in 1930. So besides these, other Protestant societies in the district are the Plymouth Brethren at Jamtara, Karmatar, and Mihijam. The American Seventh-day Adventist at Karmatar, the Wilson Mission at Shahidganj and Rajmahal. So these all are the about what the missionaries exactly worked in the tribal area, especially Santal community in India. So here, my paper is particularly focused on how these missionaries took an important role for documentation of Santali folklores, because previously these folklores were not documented in book form; they were in oral form. And what was the politics regarding their documentation and to spread and propagate the Christianity among the Santals? So the Shantals call themselves Har Hopan, meaning child or children of the human beings. The Shantals are considered to be the largest homogeneous scheduled tribe in India. P.C. Viswas, an anthropologist, in his article, Primitive Religion, Social Organization, Law and Government Among the Shantals, writes, I'm quoting, if there is any culture which still carries on the impress of underlying philosophic speculations and order of the thought that was widespread in India prior to the rise of the Dravidian culture, it was very likely that belief and social order of a pre-Dravidian Shantals. So, in the pre-Aryan and pre-Dravidian culture of India, the Shantals stand in the limelight. Unquote. Ethnically, the Shantals, Hos, Mundas, and Kharyas belong to the same family of Kolarian race. Linguistically, the Shantals are classed with the Munda family of languages, a language of Austric group to which Max Muller gave the name of Munda family of language. In the absence of a written language of their own, their past history is very vague. All that they had were oral traditions. They have no ancient books written by them on their religion. Their religion is based on oral traditions, which of course have now been documented by sociologists and anthropologists. Paul Olaf Boding, 1865 to 1938, Norwegian missionary to Shantal Parganas, India, had very large shoes to fill, those of his mentor and predecessors at the Indian Home Mission to the Shantals. Lars Scripsert, 1842-1910, who was regarded as its founder. Pure Boarding arrived in India in 1890 and was stationed uh, at Mol Pahari mission. In his 44 years in India, his literary works, materials for the for a Shantal grammar, collection of Shantal folk tales, Shantal riddles, and witchcraft among the Shantals, and studies in Shantal medicines and connected folklore. Christian missionaries played a significant role in shaping the representation of Shantali indigeneity, particularly through their documentation and translation of Shantali folklore. While their primary aim was often religious conversion, their efforts in learning the Shantali language and culture resulted in valuable contributions to the preservations and understanding of Shantali folklore. The Shantals are non-idol worshippers. They have no temple, no images to stoop to, no holy books, no official founder of their religion, and no regular worship services. Yet they hold a strong religious faith which is traceable through their festivals, cleansing ceremonies that are performed at the time of their birth and at death, and through the tradition of their creation narrative. The Shantals holds all the basic elements which are regarded to be the characteristic features of a religion. They believe in a creator God who, in consultation with other supernatural beings, has created this world and mankind. P.O. Bodin, in his book Shantal Folktales, documented the creation of earth, their flora and fauna, and how the creator God, by many appellations such as Thakur Jeev, Chand Bonga, and Dharam. Under the creator God, there are supernatural eternal beings who are associated with with him. Sorry, they are uh, Maranguru Vonga, Jahar Era Vonga, and Ghost Era, respectively. Pure Boarding, Scrape Search, Andrew Campbell, documented Shantani folktales, their language and grammar through translation. They probably represented dual roles. They represented Christianity to connect Christians, cosmology, and creation tales with the Shantali folktales related to the creation of the earth. On the other hand, the discourse of their translation, learning, the language, and pagan belief system of the Shantals may be viewed as the policies through which they came closer to the Shantals, and thus the missionaries could propagate the message of Jesus. They wrote their language, giving to it a script. They collected their traditions, folklores, songs, riddles, and incantations. To conclude, the missionaries made use of the Shantal creation narrative to compare the Thakur Jeeps, a missionary, to the first parents to be their guardians with the Saturn of the Christian faith. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for the presentation. Thank you, Mr. Vizag. Now, finally, to conclude the presentations, I invite Mr. Ningmatan from the Faculty of Law, University of Delhi, to discuss on the Takul Mayonja customary law. Mr. Mungba?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Uh,
Good
how
afternoon.
do I share my slide? Okay, okay.
It's feasible, huh?
It's coming, it's visible.
Yes.
Yeah, and this is my topic, the Tangko Mayonza. It's customary law, and the title I given there in the list, and it is here is a little bit different. I did my study based on jurisprudence, so it's a study on jurisprudential concept. My name is Mohinani Muthan. I'm a PhD scholar. That's my brief introduction. Tangkol is a tribe in Northeast India, and we are still governed by our customary law. The acceptance of our customary law, it is something we need to address because we are still under the law and there are lots of problems. Yeah, about the validity or legality or its morality compared to the modern legal system. And the other thing is this the concept, the three concepts, Shara, Tatkana, and Wurtam. These are the core elements that fill up the Tangkul Mayonza. And my objective of this research is to find out, and I want to argue that our customary law has a very well structured organic jurisprudence. And the other one, the second objective is to compare with Gelson's normative theory. I will put it that one in the next slide. And the last one is to analyze our Tangkul legal norms with the modern legal concept. Here, in my research, I use these methodologies. Population, though, I confine in my tribes, and it's partially stratified because most of the younger generation they don't know about this concept. So I put my sample only to those who are 60 years and above, and these are among the limitations. And my sample is very random, purposive, and snowball because if one elder he refer another person, then I'll go there and then take the interview. Yeah, my data I collect through interview. I did focus group discussion with some of the elders, and my data is primary in nature. My interview question is semi-structured. Both, my method is both empirical and uh, doctrinal, qualitative in nature. When I say inductive, I inducted my area that customary law into modern legal system means to all other philosophies. That's what inductive means. Comparative, that one is when I compare with Kelsen's normative theory. The concept is Sakana is a norm in our dialect that is accepted by the society. So it's literally means socially accepted norms. So practices it means norms in simple sense. Shara it's a supreme morals. Uh, this give validity to all the Satkana. And Amyawa it's a divine command given by Amyawa means in our Dankro society we believe in a in a god like supernatural being called Amyawa. So it's God Almighty. And Shara, it's sometimes they compare it with Debu or Jainas in Assam, or sometimes it's a religious order. So the in my other research, I compared it with the term. It's related to Hindu. Term means it's a religious order in one sense. So Shara, it's sometimes that validates all the norms. So it's a divine order and it's comparable to religious some order. And Wurtam, in the closest meaning with English, it's custom. So when Wurtam is etymologically dissected, one is Wur, which means we were. In our dialect, it's people. And Dam means Dam Kamaron means the passed down knowledge. So Wurtam means the practice that has been passed down from one generation to another generation. And in most of the tribal society or indigenous one, we didn't have a written record of history. So what we have knowledge is most of them they are unwritten and it's a folklore. Yeah. Here I compare Kelsen theory with Tanko system. In Kelsen theory, in normative theory, he says that grand norm is the source of all validity uh, uh, of the norm. That every norm is validated by this grand norm. So in our Tankru system, we have Shara, that is the supreme moral principle that dictates all the norm and validates all the norms. So subordinate norms according to Kelsians are this laws, regulation, they are all subordinate. But in our Tankru, it's Sakana, is the lowest norm compared to Shara. And the legal authority, Kelsen, he's a positivist. So according to positivists uh, like Kelsen Austin, legal authorities is a formal and procedural one, but our system and most of the tribals community, the authority comes from moral. It means communal and ethical. So here in positive law, law is separated from morality, but in uh, tribal society and in customary law, law and morality they are inseparable. They go hand in hand. So when it comes to sanction, it is moral and decided by public conscience. But in positive law, it is decided by government, the law enforcement. Here, requisite of valid custom when does the custom become a valid custom? So it has 6 attributes, 6 elements. That is antiquity, which has been practiced for a very long time. According to Blackstone, he says that it should be from 1100 onwards. So it means more than 2000, 1000 years. So continuity, if the practice is continued for a very long time. And the other one is reasonableness. If the custom is reasonable according to our conscience, then it is a valid custom. Certainty, it must have a very certain existence. And general acceptance, if the public accepts it, then it is a valid custom. And consistency and conformity means if it is inconsistent with a positive law and the statutory law, then it is a valid custom. Example Shinri cut here is inheritance of ancestral property. So this is a very long practice in our society. So this become a valid custom. Awunga means the king of a village. It is inherited from time to time. So this is also accepted norms. Shokala means incest. I won't go on long. In Hindu laws, we have sapinta relationship. I think it is the same. Even in our society, it is up to 7 generation, but it changes to 5 generation, reduced to 5 generation. So if we break that law in marriage, then it is shokala. So it is a valid custom in our society. Kangami means mediation. Yeah, the closest one is mediation. So if there is any problem arise among individuals or village, the first step to settle the problem is kangami. And in my conclusion, I find that these three are the very core elements that formulate and constitute our Tangkul customary law. And Wutam custom, it is derived from the Zatkana, its norm, and validated by Shara. That's what I find in my research. And custom in Tangkul is by origin. It comes very deliberately. That it come, and have sanction. The sanction, it comes from the society. And when education and Christianity comes in Tangkul society, there it brings a lot of changes in our customary law, because we took what Christianity bring to us, like what Bible commands, we accept, and it changes in our customary practices. Like we avoid prohibit the rice wine, and we destroy our gongsang, that is beads that we worn around, and the hairstyle we all changes. And lastly, what I find is the nature of our society, Tangku, it's patriarchal, and then women's, they have no political rights in representation. That is what I see. Till now, there are no representation in village council or in bigger association of Tangku. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mungba, for that insightful look into the Tangkul customary law. Now, I'd like to call upon our chairperson, Dr. Urvashi Mohinani, to share her expert observations on the diverse themes and also to moderate the Q&A session. Dr. Urvashi.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, a very heartiest congratulations to all the presenters who presented. It was a very insightful presentation from each and everyone, especially with the vernacularity and the folk district of everybody's subject. And thank you so much, Jolly sir, for inviting me, giving me an opportunity to be a chairperson for this event. And thank you, Folk Culture Studies. No questions from my end, because it was such an interesting presentation from each and everyone that I was very entitled not to ask anything, but just to firmly get into the subject of each and every presentation that have been offered in this beautiful premises. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Neha. Thank you so much, Jolly sir, from behalf of the everybody's. It was a great way of having a Saturday afternoon and morning to chair a session like this. And it was a very learning session for me, where I can take each and every point from each and every 8 presenters that I have seen today. So thank you, everyone.
Is there any questions? Anyone who would like to ask a question? I think we had a question earlier from Kritika.
Hi, good afternoon. Yes, I had asked a question in the chat earlier to Umair sir, the
Yeah,
first
good.
presenter.
Yeah, good afternoon. So, I had in my presentation talked about Dr. Verrier Elvin's contribution, the way he has studied the Gond and the Baigas tribe located in Madhya Pradesh and Odisha in India. So his work essentially talks of how qualitative study, which is ethnographic in nature, how it has been conducted. But the only problem, so this gives us a good insight into what your question basically is asking about, how we can actually make use of this and practically use it in our study for our study purposes. But so we have to necessarily go to this beautiful narration that Verrier Elvin has blessed us with. But the only problem is that this is almost a century old now. So it is incumbent on us to actually come up with the likes of such researches and studies, because we need to have more, especially in the 21st century, we need to have more of such data, which can only be done if we actually go to the grassroots level and witness. Because when you are collecting data and analyzing qualitatively as to how much of language learning is happening through the use of, let's say, folk tales or proverbs or any oral dissemination of stories, so that for that I think it is an exhaustive task that lies ahead. I am assuming, and that is exactly why I said this is a working paper, because I am in the midst of adding more sources to it, which shall entail and highlight more of recent studies that have focused on documenting whatever has been done in regards to the language learning through oral traditions. So I think that answers your question fairly.
Yes, that answers the question. Actually, I had a similar project where I was learning about a language which doesn't have a script and is now not being spoken that much. So, I had similar questions regarding what method should I apply, or if I'm conducting a ethnographic research, more of linguistics was coming rather than it being a cultural studies project. So, yeah, these were my questions, and thank you for the answer.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are there any more questions?
Neha, the keynote speaker for the next session is waiting. Can we just wrap up? If there are any questions, you can just mail us, and we would get back to you.
All right, then. Since we have concluded our insightful paper presentations, we now move to our highly anticipated segment, which is the special keynote